High season. Only this time, it is the lowest of all seasons. A virus from lands afar has forced Kenya's eighth wonder of the world to wander in the dark. COVID-19 is here, and the lifeline of the Masai Mara, the consumers of the marvels of nature, are not here. The loneliness in the Mara is palpable and deeply felt.
Our greatest market is actually the United States of America. Last year, that's where the greatest number of tourists who visit the Mara came from, the US, followed by Europe. You know, now those markets are hit now, and as you know, there are no flights coming.
You know, Masai Mara, the visitors that visit at any one time in annually, you're talking around 400,000 visitors.
Since Kenya reported its first case of COVID-19, not a single tourist has been here, and the animals have noticed. These are the loneliest of times. Silence is now the new normal. The bird's voice, however, breaks the stillness like the cracking of ice in a cold drink. The absence of humans has left the Mara shrouded in a cloud of loneliness, eerily quiet and yet peaceful. The loneliness makes the drive inside the park both exciting and terrifying. In a different time, there'd be numerous tour vans crisscrossing the park, the sound of tired tires on the dirt roads and the clicking of cameras resounding loudly in the air. The animals would steal the show. Now it's an abyss of silence. In the times of coronavirus disease, the wildlife have the Mara all to themselves and are literally running wild.
When the activities were on, there are so many vehicles all over. There are so many human beings taking pictures, people even sometimes breaking the park rules, driving right into the animal. You have seen a picture of so many vehicles around, for example, lions or a rhino and so forth. You know, harassment of wildlife. There was a big harassment of wildlife. Now that is gone. There is no tourist. There is no vehicle in the Mara. So the animal is roaming, is having a field day.
Besides a few delivery trucks and the rangers patrolling the park, ours is the only other vehicle in the park, and the view is breathtaking. The lone elephant that blocks our path strikes a pose for the camera. Complementing that pose is a herd of buffaloes, fresh from a mud bath. The price that comes with this piece of heaven in the wilderness of the savannah has not been easy or cheap. The long rain season brought too much rain, too much pasture, and the much more cover for prey for predators. This has in turn forced some of the predators out of the reserve in search of food.
The lions, you find that they tend now to come nearer to where there is human habitation. Most of them have been born. They have grown up seeing cars, seeing people in cars. These days there is none.
The lions like to hunt on short grass because they want to see the animal they are going to hunt, and therefore they have been trying to move a bit out. But in terms of percentage, if you ask me, less than 10%.
The Mara is the single biggest source of revenue for Narok County, bringing in at least 90% of the income. The absence of tourists has had an impact not only on the county's accounts, but also on conservation activities.
Most of the conservation work in the Mara is fed by tourism dollars. And as soon as flights were suspended into the country and the whole world was affected, tourism as we know it completely went down. So all the lodges, camps, tourist facilities, safari services just collapsed within that short period. And so in our case, we started struggling because we depend on tourism through conservation.
We've gone from sort of 40-50% occupancy to nil. The lodges have all closed, the camps have all closed. We don't have a single tourist coming to the Masai Mara at the moment. And this will impact us greatly on our revenue, because we rely on tourism revenue, park fees, to basically maintain the park, maintain the security, pay salaries, improve infrastructure and so on. So in that respect, for the last month we've had no income, not a cent.
The closure of the camps and lodges within the reserve meant that hundreds of people employed there lost their jobs, facing an uncertain future.
In our program, we have over 100 people from the neighboring community, either working as community rangers, working as community teachers in the schools we run, or working in the safari camps which we operate. We had to let go about 80%.
Mimi nafanya kazi hapo Sekenani Environment Center. Sisi ni watu wa kusimamia idara ya afya ya cleanliness hapo Sekenani and all Mara. Sasa wakati corona ilianzia, tulifanya kazi kidogo tukifanya hizo precautions ya kuchukua na hiyo sanitizer. Tuko na staff watu 26. Sasa tulifunga tukabaki staff watu 4. Sasa mimi niko mmoja wa kwenda nyumbani for part time ya hii.
We've sent people home to take off days on full pay. We've reduced bonuses and allowances. So we've reduced the number of patrols that we're doing.
The county had anticipated that this year's Great Migration would be one of the best ever witnessed because the heavy rains had caused the Mara River to swell up, setting up an arena for one of the world's sought-after marvels, the wildebeest migration. But now it seems that opportunity has been swept away with the floods and, yes, the COVID-19 pandemic.
There is only one time at least when tourism had gone down so much, during the Gulf War. When the Gulf War was there, you find that tourism numbers had gone down so much, such that sometimes we used to get maybe one car entering the reserve, sometimes in a day, and sometimes even in a week.
We've seen drops in tourism as a result of post-election violence and concerns around the elections, but nothing as catastrophic as this.
Travel and tourism accounts for 10% of global GDP, which makes the sector larger than agriculture. In 2018, the economic contribution of wildlife tourism was estimated at $343.6 billion, which is 0.4% of global GDP. Wildlife tourism is believed to support over 21 million jobs across the world, or 6.8% of total travel and tourism jobs. And with the industry now grounded, the World Travel and Tourism Council anticipates an economic loss of up to $2.1 trillion. In some parts of the world, the coronavirus lockdown that is forcing humans to stay indoors has brought the wildlife out, thriving in the silence of the empty nature trails. Kenya's wildlife have taken over the now closed camps and lodges. The reduced human activity has given rise to increased poaching in parts of the world such as Southern Africa, and while similar fears have been raised in Kenya, Masai Mara rangers insist that they haven't had any such problems. While the full impact of the tourism shutdown in Kenya has not yet been computed, Narok County estimates that its losses will run into billions of shillings in lost revenue.
Tourism can possibly, up to some point, weather a thing like this because the camps just close down. The lodges close down, they leave a minimal number of staff in the camps and lodges. Whereas in conservation, we can't do that.
And it's not just the lodges and camps that have suffered the impact of no visitors. Outside the reserve, communities that live along its borders have also been hit.
Sisi ni watu wanategemea wasungu. Tunashona vitu ya wasungu ili tupate chakula na tupate kusomesha watoto. Tumepitia mangumu sana kwa sababu hata kukula imekuwa shida. Watoto unaona wamerudisha nyumbani, tuko na watoto wote kwa nyumbani, hakuna kitu tunakula. Hata kama kasi ya masoko tumefungiwa, hakuna mahali unauza ng'ombe yako, hakuna mahali unauza kondoo.
This boma has at least 28 manyatas with a total population of 100 people, all of who depend on the Masai Mara to earn a living, doing different things to serve the tourism industry in order to be able to feed their families. But now, while the Masai Mara itself, the animals in the park, are grateful for the minimal human interaction, this community here is not pleased because they know no tourists means no income.
Mimi husikia corona kutoka kwa redio. Na nasikia corona ni ugonjwa inakuja kama homa. Inaletwa wansua na mikono, mtu kukohoa na ni kama homa. Tumeelezwa ni corona tumesababisha hatuna kazi sasa. Wasungu wamefungiwa, hakuna mgeni yoyote tunaona. Kwa siku nilikuwa natengeneza hata kama 1500 hivi. Kwa sababu kazi ya wasungu ni kisima tu kutoka kwa Mungu. Unalalisha hiyo soko yako, wasungu wanakuja wanaangalia, wanapendezwa, wananua kwako. Hasa kwa siku nilikuwa natengeneza pesa kidogo ni 1000 mpaka 2000. Hasa kuanzia saa hivi venye hatuna wasungu tutategemea msaada.
They sing as they prepare themselves for the task ahead. For the next 21 days, this is their home, and the job they're here to do is not an easy one.
Asa tena jukumu kubwa letu kuja hapa ni kuja kutengeneza hizo madawa za kienyeji ili tukunywe kwa sababu ita boost immunity ya mwili.
This is a meat camp tucked deep in the bushes of the Nashulai Conservancy in Sekinani, Narok County. The health crisis that has brought the world to its knees is why they're here.
Ingawa leo tuko manyumbani wote kwa sababu ya coronavirus. Hii ni ugonjwa ambao ilitokea na ni ugonjwa mbaya sana. Pia tumeelimishwa madhara yake kama venye utajikinga.
As scientists across the world race to find a cure and or a vaccine for the coronavirus disease, this group of 24 men is working towards the same goal. None of them is a scientist and they have no lab, but they say they know their herbs.
Sote tunachanganya mahali moja kwa sufuria moja. Alafu tunachemusha 3 hours. Tunachanganya dawa aina mingi kama dawa za miti tofauti kama 52. Kwa hivyo ni dawa ambazo ziko very strong.
This meat camp runs on a 21-day shift system. After 21 days, this group will leave and a new group of 24 will arrive.
Na mtajuaje kama hiyo dawa yenu imefanya kazi?
Okay, kitu ya kwanza ukikunywa hiyo dawa, nasikia kama imekuingia kichwa. Inakuwa kama ile amorano una feel mori. Pia unapokunywa soup, tumbo yesi jaa venye unakula chakula.
For now, none of the members of the Sekinani community have tested positive for the coronavirus disease, but the impact that the disease has had on tourism has hit them hard. Without a source of income, many are unable to feed their families. Living on aid is now their new normal.
Sisi tunaona ikiendelea hivi tutaangamia sana kama sisi wa Masai.
Recently, the government presented a stimulus package to restart the economy post-COVID-19, which included funds set aside to cushion the tourism industry and conservation.
In the hospitality sector and the tourism sector, we want to gradually open this sector as well because it is worstly hit by this pandemic.
The tourism component of the stimulus program will also engage 5,500 community scouts under the Kenya Wildlife Service at a cost of Kenya shillings 1 billion. Additionally, support will be made available to approximately 160 community conservancies at a cost of another 1 billion Kenya shillings.
To our community living around the park that depends 100% with the tourism activity, perhaps they might need to know that even if they live from hand to mouth, they need to be advised on an investment to set aside something small from what they get to the tourism just to save for future.
We have reserves that'll probably see us through until September or so. September, maybe October if we're really very prudent with our expenditure. For the whole triangle. For the whole triangle. But thereafter, we don't know.
Tourism is one of Kenya's main contributors to the economic growth and the third largest contributor to the GDP after agriculture and manufacturing. It is also the third leading foreign exchange earner after tea and horticulture. In 2019, earnings grew by 3.9% to 163.6 billion shillings. But as the sector undergoes emergency resuscitation, industry players say that throwing money at it is not enough. In order to make tourism great again, man must embrace the silence and change his ways and embrace a sustainable way of life.
It's important for people to realize that they cannot live in isolation without nature. We are like Siamese twins. For nature to take care of us, we also have to take care of it.
The greatest enemy of environment is actually human being. So without, because you know the forest, if there are no human beings, there will be no problem.
I foresee that it'll probably reorganize tourism within the Mara. I think that we'll see a number of camps closing. In a way, this may be a good thing. It may be an opportunity for us to right some of the perceived wrongs with the Mara, over tourism, overcrowding.
I would really encourage tourism in Mara to be focused on quality, not quantity, so that Mara can become that prime destination, because it's actually a golden destination. It's a goose which lays the golden egg. So I think the Mara, once we have it again together, and we will, it's better to change it into a premier destination, probably fewer tourists, paying a higher premium.
Probably we will need to tighten or change our park rules to maybe check at the distance of the animal, that a vehicle will be going closer to the animal just to give them the privacy, and also try to regulate the number of visitors in the park at a given year.
In future, we see the Mara being like the gorillas, so that we say as the Mara, how many tourists do we need at any moment in a day, in a way that the wildlife is not disturbed in their natural habitat. So that if we are told we only need 20 tourists, as an example, then per day it's only 20 tourists. If there is another one at 21, from there, if there is any other tourist, additional one, we tell you, please, sorry, come tomorrow.
Governments worldwide have their hands full dealing with the human emergency of COVID-19, making it difficult to argue for investment in nature right now. But environmentalists argue that making tourism sustainable is the best way to recover and protect it against future shocks. In the past, the recovery time after disease outbreaks has been 19 months.
We don't really expect tourism to pick up. We may, once things open, we may see tourists trickling back. But in my own experience, we don't expect tourism to get anywhere near the levels it was pre-COVID-19 for another 3 or 4, maybe 5 years.
In the meantime, Narok's relief comes in the fact that it does not solely rely on tourism and has now turned its attention to its other source of revenue, agriculture.
As we deal with it, life must continue. And one of the things we are telling our people is, let's see the opportunities which can be available because of COVID. One of the opportunities is demand for food. And because we have productive land, we are telling our farmers to upscale the growing of food in this county.
With 60% of its land being productive, the county is among the country's major producers of maize, wheat and barley. But the heavy rains this past long rain season did not make it easy.
Shida imekuwa kubwa sana. Bado hii mashamba mingi sana ijalimwa. Nafikiri hata mwaka hii watu watapanda hata mpaka mwisho wa mwezi wa 5.
But as the farmers rushed to put seed in the ground before the long rain season was over, they did so with the weight of COVID-19 on their shoulders, effectively slowing them down.
Lakini kwa wakulima na wafanyikazi wetu tunakuwa na lot of challenges. Sababu umechelewa kwa shamba, umefika town na sababu lazima upitie town ndio uende nyumbani. Umekuta ile wakati ya kafi imefika, ile watu yako wameumiswa.
Still, the county remains optimistic that this year's harvest will be above average. But it also keeps hope alive that soon the cloud of loneliness that shrouds the Masai Mara will lift and give tourists a better premium experience. Zainab Wandati, NTV.
Now